So my name is Dr. Mutua Mbuvi. I am a medical officer working at the Kenyatta National Hospital. And my journey into medicine started from when I was very young. I was fortunate enough, my parents were actually working, both my parents were working in Kenyatta National Hospital. And I think the influence of growing around this particular environment, because we used to stay in the what we call the sisters' flats or the residence area for the hospital. Growing up and seeing people walking around with white lab coats and things hanging around their necks, and knowing that it's them who actually impact on the health of the people, and they're the ones who take care of people when they're sick and nurture them back into good health, was a very big influence in my early life. So from that influence, and I found myself going to medical college. I actually started off at the Kenya Medical Training College, where I pursued a diploma in clinical medicine. And then after that, I actually went now and pursued my Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery degree. And when I was back, I worked briefly at other hospitals, and then I actually got employed in KNH, which was actually more like a dream come true, because I felt like I'd gone full cycle from being here as a child and then going the entire scope, and then now coming back now as a doctor, as the person who, as the people I'd looked up to when I was a child. When the whole story about COVID-19 started, and we used to hear stories about that this disease that is in China, that apparently is really ravaging the people who are there, and it's really taking a toll on them, and it's been seen in other countries and other areas, and it seems like it's spreading. Was one of the things that we saw when we were still at work. So I was working at the Accident and Emergency Department at the time, and also sometimes partly working with what we call the Infectious Diseases Unit in Kenyatta Hospital. So at the time when in 2020, when now COVID was now seen that this thing is actually coming, and we need to be prepared as a country in order to at least be able to protect our citizens, and also be able to manage the patients who may actually get affected, because we knew it was coming. It was only just a matter of time. So the hospital had made preparations to have a center opened up where we'll be able to deal with any patients who came in and were suspected to have COVID-19, and even those ones who were confirmed to have COVID-19. So this one was basically at the Infectious Diseases Unit Hospital, which was at Mbagathi, on the grounds of Mbagathi Hospital, but it was being run and managed by Kenyatta. So I was part of the initial team that was sent to the Mbagathi facility to actually just prepare and see how we can be able to handle the cases that will be coming in. Part of the reason why I was selected was because I had also undergone some training in terms of Ebola, and in terms of outbreaks such as that. I was one of the doctors who had been trained in that through KNH. So when I was sent to the COVID-19 unit, that is where now we were to start. So initially we had two centers where we were running, taking care of COVID-19 patients. We had the Mbagathi facility, and we also had our infectious disease unit that is here within the Kenyatta Hospital grounds. So the first patients who came in who were suspected to have COVID-19 were actually housed at the infectious disease unit here at Kenyatta National Hospital, and that is where I was working. And we had cases, we had patients who were there who were suspected to have COVID-19. And at that time, most of the swabs that we were taking for the test to know whether these patients actually have COVID-19 or not were actually being sent all the way to South Africa. So there was quite a long period of time that we had to sit with these patients and actually just wait for the results to come in. But I think slowly, as now the government and the Ministry of Health and Kenyatta National Hospital began to realize that this thing is actually, there are higher chances that we might actually get someone who's COVID-19 positive in the country. So the national lab, so the name is disappearing a bit. Influenza lab, yes, the National Influenza Lab actually started doing the tests for us as well. So we will get the samples from the patients, and we will send them to the National Influenza Lab, and they will do the tests for us. And then we will get the results, and if the patient was actually found to be negative, we will actually discharge them. Majority of these patients were actually people who had flown into the country, and due to the government ways of how to mitigate spread of COVID-19 was that anyone who came in, those are criteria that they were using for any person who was flying into the country that needed to be quarantined or isolated, tested, and then if the tests came out negative, then they would be released to go home. So we had a few of those people with us at the center. Now, so the first part of it, January, February of 2020, was actually just clockwork like that. So we will just have the patients. We had our protective personal equipment, and most of these things that we were learning from what has been happening in China and what has been happening in the rest of the European states and in the US. So we were borrowing the protocols that they were using, the measures they were taking, the kind of personal protective equipment that they were wearing. The one thing that I have to say over the entire period of COVID-19, from the time it started to the time when now it was declared that now we can actually go back to normalcy, is that the support that the team that we were in, the guys who were actually working on the front line in COVID-19 for KNH, one thing I can say that I would give very good commendations to the hospital. The hospital ensured that we had all the things that we needed in terms of personal protective equipment, in terms of how our shifts were scheduled. The hospital actually allowed us to be able to follow the protocols that are being given by the Ministry of Health and by the national government, and also to just tailor-make those particular protocols to suit our needs as we are on the ground. Because in most instances, you'll find that things are not a direct copy and paste situation, that you will get something, but you also need to figure out what are the things that we are facing on the ground. How do we take these protocols and utilize them and actually tailor-make them for us to be able to give the best to our patients and also ensure the safety and protection of the healthcare workers who are actually working within these units. Mm-hmm. So KNH, through the CEO and through the board, did an excellent job, in my humble opinion, in terms of just ensuring that we had all the things that we needed at that time to combat this disease. So January, February, it was okay. We're getting negative results. We will discharge people, they will go home, and things like that. Then March happened, and the first case of COVID-19 was confirmed. And I was actually at the unit on that day when it was announced by the then cabinet secretary in the Ministry of Health, when he announced that now we have our first case of COVID-19. And I think the feeling at that time was a feeling of dread. We actually got a bit scared because we had seen what COVID-19 had done in China. We had seen what COVID-19 was doing in Europe and in Italy at that time. We were seeing how people were dying. And I think there was a notion around in the world that if countries such as China, if countries such as Italy and all these other European states, people are dying in numbers, what is going to happen in Africa? A continent that is considered that our healthcare system is not up to par, or it's not up to par with the likes of Europe, with the likes of China, because a majority of scientific and medical innovations usually come from these particular countries. And yet, we could see how they were being ravaged, how people were dying on a daily basis in large numbers. So, of course, it was a very scary moment for us. The fact that I think for the first, January and February, we were just okay. We knew, we're dealing with COVID-19. We're wearing PPEs. We are seeing these patients in the ward. But most of the time, the results are coming back negative. And then the first case happened. And then that's when reality actually hit us. And we were like, okay, so this thing is actually here. Now, it's here. We have now to figure out how we need to be extra careful and to start doing things a bit better. We need to be a bit more careful about how we handle our patients and how we actually utilize the protocols that we have. So at this point, the Mbagathi unit was now fully operational. At that time, it was designed to be about a 150-bed capacity hospital that will be able to cater for all our needs in terms of addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. And at that time, after the first case was confirmed, the days that followed, the weeks that followed, the months that followed, the numbers just kept going up. Now, at that time, the protocol was, if you're found to be COVID-19 positive, you have to be isolated. And you have to be isolated in a hospital or in a facility that is designed specifically to cater for COVID-19. So now we started receiving patients in our Mbagathi facility, people who are found to be COVID-19 positive. The good thing I can say about that initial part of the COVID-19 pandemic was that the patients we were getting were not exactly patients we will say who were like on their deathbed. These were actually vibrant people. They were young people. Yes, they were COVID-19 positive, but they were actually okay. They did not require any like specialized care in terms of intensive care. They just needed to be isolated. We treat the symptoms that come with the condition, and then after that, once we do the we do the tests for COVID-19, and we find that they have gotten like 2 consecutive negative tests in a 48-hour period. We consider that it's safe for them to be discharged and to go back to the community. Now, the COVID-19 story at that time, from my perspective, took 2 different approaches. So I think I'll talk about what we experienced as healthcare workers, and then also what we saw in terms of the patients that we were dealing with in the facility. So as healthcare workers, like I said, KNH did a tremendous job to ensure that we had all the equipment that we need. I can honestly say there's not a single day that I reported to work that I lacked personal protective equipment. And this was not, it was not that I recycled things. They were actually full brand new PPEs that I can pick any day, wear them, and I can go see the patients, give them medication that we need to give, and actually just do our work the way we're supposed to do it. And we were not entirely scared about, we were kind of scared about COVID-19, but we knew that if we follow the correct protocol, if we follow the correct measures, if we have our PPEs in check, we will not have any, we're not anticipating to have any accidental exposures and things like that. The protocols at that time also said that as long as you're working in a COVID-19 unit, I think after every 2 weeks, it was after every 2 weeks, you have to be tested. So we used to undergo that testing. And honestly speaking, that was one of the most... okay, having something shoved into your nose is not a nice thing. And then having it being done after every 2 weeks was not interesting, but it was part of the protocols, and we had to follow the protocols so that we ensure that our own safety was also guaranteed. So the thing that I noticed at that time for healthcare workers, I think it's human nature. The people who work in the COVID-19 unit at that time, we did face a lot of stigma from the general public, and even sometimes from our own colleagues who are not working in the COVID-19 unit. And we understand why. COVID-19 was a disease that was killing people in their hundreds. And we were the people who were on the front line, literally working, literally taking care of the people who actually had COVID-19. So the rest of the people who are not working in these units had a certain fear of us, because they consider that we are exposed as well. So if they come into contact with us, they might also get exposed. That was number one, is on the side of healthcare workers. But as time continued, and people now we continued learning more and more about what COVID-19 is, how is it spread, how do you stop the spread, how do you ensure your safety and ensure the safety of your patients and ensure the safety of your colleagues who you're working with, the stigma started dying down. So that was on the side of the healthcare workers. If you look at the side of the patients who we were managing in the facility, the stigma levels for those patients were actually astronomical levels. At that time, if you remember, it was the test is done, the ministry, you're considered, your test is found to be positive, and they send an ambulance to your house with a team of people dressed in white and fully, PPE covered, and they come and they remove you from your house and they take you to hospital for treatment. Now, what used to happen was, when we would discharge these patients and we will tell them, okay, now it's time for you to go home, many of them were scared to go back because of that trauma that they experienced. And also the fact that their relatives who are left in the houses, the neighbors were actually telling them, you guys need to move out because you guys are going to expose us. You have COVID-19. We don't want our estate or our neighborhood to be tainted, so you guys have to leave. There was a lot of stigma that was going on at that time. Now, so of course we actually put this forward to the management, and we told them, this is what we are seeing with the patients on the ground. These are the situations that these people are going through. And again, kudos to KNH. The management went full to support them. They hired counseling psychologists for them. So we had a team of counseling psychologists who were not only there for the patients, but were also there for us as the staff. Because honestly speaking, if you're in a place where you're working and you know that I am constantly putting my life in danger in order to help a particular patient, there's a certain toll, there's a certain stress that it takes upon you. And if you don't have someone who you can talk to, someone who can relate to what you're doing, or someone who can be able to help you work through those emotions, that build-up can become a challenge later on in the future. So credit to the fact that we had counseling psychologists who were hired specifically for the COVID-19 area. And it was a wonderful team of counselors because they fully understood what we were up against. They fully understood what the patients who were inside the facility were facing. And through that, we were able now to at least have proper counseling sessions for the patients. And they also had a chance now to, tell their stories as well, to tell us how, what kind of stigma they're going through. And some of them will actually tell us how they actually ended up getting COVID-19 in the first place. So it was a very positive thing that came out of a very dark part that we were going through. And now coming to understand the importance of mental health, not just in COVID-19, but also in general in the medical field, regardless of whatever condition you're facing, and knowing that you can have someone who's a counselor who can actually be able to take you through the steps and help you go through any condition that you're going through at any given time, was actually one of the things that was a light bulb moment, I think, during the COVID-19 period, that we came to understand the importance and the value of having mental health specialists there with us to take care of not only us as the healthcare workers, but our patients as well. Those are some of the nuances and the things that we were going through in the COVID-19 unit. So as COVID-19 was progressing, we started having like ups and downs of the curve. So there are times the numbers will go like really, really high, and our unit will be packed. We would have so many patients inside there, and we were just taking our steps, following the protocols that were being released by the ministry through their relations with the specialists. And we were lucky enough as KNH to have our specialists who are there, our infectious disease specialists who are there with us. And they were part of the team that was helping to curate these protocols that were being used, not only just in KNH, but in the entire country. So there are times when COVID-19 numbers will rise and rise and rise, and the workload will become a lot. And there was a strain, and we had to like go put 150% of what we normally do just to ensure that things are running properly. And then a time will come when the numbers will just start dropping, and we will discharge patients, our numbers will go down, and we will be fine. Then again, another spike will happen, and an increased number of people will come back in with COVID-19, and we will manage them. I can say the good thing about the first part, what I call the first part of COVID-19, was that in as much as unfortunately we had a few people who passed on, it was not to the numbers that the rest of the world anticipated. And I think that was one of the things that I thank God on a daily basis for that, because the thought and what even was there at that time was that if COVID-19 lands in Africa, Africa is done. We are all finished. We will not be able to control this thing. We will not be able to handle it. If it's this bad I'm using China, Italy, and Spain, because those ones were they were really ravaged. And then India also at some time also got really, really bad. But on our side, at least we were able to contain it, and we managed it. And we were able to say, thank God we are not losing people the way we had anticipated. And then the various variants of COVID-19 started happening. And I think the one that really took us on a proper ride was the Delta wave. The Delta variant of COVID-19 was one of the deadliest that we had seen at KNH as us who were working on the front lines, because at that time is when now we began to see people who were coming in and they were really, really badly off. We had a specific COVID-19 intensive care unit. So the COVID-19 unit that was here at Kenyatta National Hospital was now converted into an intensive care unit specifically for COVID-19. And we will get these people who will come from home, and someone has been having COVID-19 for let's say like 3-4 days, has been confirmed, and then now they come in and their lungs are completely destroyed. They are unable to breathe properly on their own. And now we had to go that extra mile and now put them in intensive care. And this meant using things like what you call the high flow nasal cannulas that were able to give oxygen of up to let's say 70 liters per minute. And if that failed, then now we had to go there, what you call the invasive way. Now we had to put them on a ventilator and have the ventilator now breathe for them. And the oxygen requirements at that time for the patients that we were seeing were crazy. It was bad. As in our oxygen center used to be replenished, I think after every day they had to come back and put in more oxygen because there was a really big consumption of oxygen at that time. And unfortunately that was the time when majority of the patients actually also died, because they had really, really bad disease. The disease was quite serious, and for a good majority of them is that we had patients who had now other comorbidities, now other illnesses, your diabetes, your hypertension, and now they get COVID-19, and it just becomes a whole other story. So during my time, during that first part, and now when we were getting to the Delta wave, I was still working at the Mbagathi facility, and then I was now transferred to the intensive care unit in the one that is in KNH. So the interesting thing about coming to this particular unit was, I think, so in as much as everything that was going on, that we were dealing with very critical patients, I think the highlight for me personally, on my personal side, was I actually got an opportunity to work with my mom. My mom is a nurse, and she was actually working at that facility at the same time. So her and I were actually working. We find ourselves the same shift, and I'll be there, I'm the doctor, I'm giving instructions, she's the nurse, she's there, she's giving medications. It was a nice thing. I think there's a certain joy that you get from actually doing something with your parent. It was actually quite nice. But at the same time, it was also quite scary for me, because this is my mom, and at that time she was just nearing, she was about to get to her retirement age. So I was also scared for her. I was also like, I don't want you to be working here. But my mom is she's very, she loves what she does. She's been a nurse for a very long time. She's worked in KNH her entire life. And her joy is just doing her job as a nurse. And there's nothing that you could tell her to stop. We knew her passion is, she's dedicated, so I was just like, oh, it's fine. At least I'm here with her. I can keep an eye on her. So that was my joy for me at that time. So we stayed in the intensive care unit. We were seeing our patients, they were coming in. And one of the other thing that we noticed at that particular time was the pressure that was coming in from even just the rest of the country. We will be getting calls all the way from Wajir, from Kisumu, Eldoret. People want to transfer their COVID-19 patients to an intensive care unit. Because at that time, I think the whole aspect of, if you look at it from the financial perspective of running an intensive care unit, it's quite costly. It is quite costly. And then now you're dealing with a condition that has been declared a pandemic. It's affecting everyone. So now you can't really discriminate and say, ICU is meant for people who have money and, the people who can afford it. But now you have a disease that is affecting everyone, and anyone can find themselves so badly off that they actually need that ICU bed. So we will get calls, so many calls from so many hospitals just asking, is there a bed available for an ICU? We have a patient who we need to transfer. Kudos to county governments who actually responded to that call and opened up various ICUs in their particular areas. But on our side as KNH, we did the best that we could. I can say that, because if we actually had a bed available and our hospital makes the call and we're actually able to receive that patient, and we know that you can actually give good care to that patient, the patient will actually come and they will actually receive the care that they needed. So that was how we were able to manage COVID-19. We will deal with the vaccines and the way they will come. We will adjust accordingly to how the situation will be. If there was a need to increase the number of doctors, the number of nurses, the number of counselors working at the facility, because our numbers were going up, the hospital was able to do that for us. In the event where the numbers will go down, and now we can be able to release a few people to go home and at least rest and recuperate, and as our numbers have gone down, we were able to do that. And then as the numbers begin to spike, guys come back into work, and we were able to continue like that. So I think on my part, we did a commendable job in terms of how we took care of our COVID-19 patients, especially at KNH. I think we did a lot. We handled a lot of cases. And the other aspect of dealing with COVID-19 is that when a disease becomes the centerfold of the whole world, people tend to focus on it more. Now, the downside of that is people tend to forget that the other diseases have not disappeared. They're still there. People will still get into road traffic accidents. People will still require surgery. People will still have hypertension. They will still get stroke. Diabetics will still become diabetic. We still need to manage them. And then now, the intricate play of how we were dealing with patients who had multiple conditions and also had COVID-19 as well became one of the challenges that we had as KNH. And I keep saying this, and I think even many of the times that I've talked to people about my experience in KNH in terms of COVID-19, I usually tell them, for you as a person on the ground, you're the person who's dealing with this patient. The most important thing for you is to have, as in your backup needs to be on point. The people who are standing behind you, the people who are actually propping you up for you to do your job, they need to be strong people. And that is one of the things that we saw at KNH.
My name is Mercy Wendy Achulo. I work at Kenyatta National Hospital as a medical laboratory scientist. And I've been working in Kenyatta for over 10 years. So, of course, there were frontliners were chosen who to do what, and according to the departments. So in lab, I was one of the people who were chosen to be the frontliners. So we were the ones, personally, the docket that I was in, we were collecting samples from the patients. Of course, it was swabbing and swabbing on the nose and the mouth. Okay, when COVID came, everyone was, including me, we were like, what is this virus? It was new to us. Even us, personally, I was scared of it. Even when I was chosen to be among the team of swabbing patients, I was also scared. So there was that, yes, I'm doing it, but deep down, I'm scared. Trying to protect yourself, even overprotecting yourself. We used to put on gown. My friend, that gown was so uncomfortable. As in, the whole, we were the ones who were swabbing the whole hospital. And of course, we were understaffed because no one wanted to be in COVID. So if you are told to go and work in COVID, you're like, hey, this one wants me to die. So we were understaffed to a point that even going home was a problem because you are scared. You're like, okay, if I get this thing, first and foremost, my family will be infected. So it reached a point we requested the management to give us a house. Okay, it looks funny, but yeah, that time we were all scared, to give us a house nearby so that we don't go at home to, we don't infect our family. It was done. We used to stay around. So we would work even weird hours just to be able to cope with the I can say demand, because people are many that time. So workload was a lot. So when you're at work, because we used to work in shift. So when you're at work, when you want to communicate with the family, of course, it's through the phone. Remember that time we were all scared. We don't know what this is, what extent can it be, and we've already heard the statistics, people are dying. So you're like kind of protecting your family. So when you're on shift, you will not see your family. So when you're off duty, that's when. So that's how we used to operate. And it was working for us. Yes, we used to work long, weird hours, but it used to work for us. In our mind, yeah, we are protecting these other people. But it reached a point when I think we started, I can say, to me, I can say we started embracing this COVID thing. And yeah, now we started operating from work. Of course, it came with its own disadvantage because some of my family members were infected with, personally also I was infected with COVID. But that time when COVID started, you see there was that, do I call it discrimination or something? I don't have a right one for it. In that when you say you have COVID, you know there's that thing for isolation. You don't want to be isolated. So ukisema, yeah, I have COVID, there's a way, because staffs used to be admitted. We had a special place where staffs used to be admitted. So you don't want to go through that phase. So when you know that you have those symptoms for COVID, you'll go get tested. So you're the lab person, you'll go get tested, but you're positive. Yeah, you manage it so that you don't get isolated or how do we call it? Yes. But you keep away from your family members. Yeah, that thing was terrible. So how I came to know that I had COVID, first it started with headache, then the whole body started aching. vomiting. I used to vomit. Yeah, those are the symptoms that I had. So I knew here, nimepatikana. So I went for testing, found out that I was positive. Yeah. At that time, we had known how to manage COVID. That was after we had known how to manage COVID. So, zinc has to be there, the tablets that used to be given. So it was not that scary. In the beginning, we used to concentrate on people who are already clinically confirmed that they have COVID. Yeah. So we test them. Then when we get positive results, they're the ones who are isolated at Mbagathi. But there's this other case, the outpatient. So that was inpatient. We used to, even after they are confirmed positive, inside the ward, we would test them after every 7 days. So we'll enter into the ward, of course, well covered with those gowns. Before entering, there was a standard operating procedure for before you enter. After entering, we were taught how to handle the specimen, how to handle this first, how to collect the specimen, how to handle it, and after getting out of the ward, we were also taught how to dig out. So there was a procedure from when you enter, during swabbing, how to handle the specimen. There was that carefulness and so that we don't infect ourselves. So, yeah. It was more intense when COVID started. I think with time, through those continuous medical education, we came to realize that we don't have to gown ourselves fully because it was so uncomfortable. You can imagine you've gowned yourself from head to toe, going from ground floor. We used to swab the whole ward. It used to be crazy. So from ground floor till 10th floor, you're in that gown. The whole day, you're in that gown. It used to be crazy. It was not a nice experience, actually. So I think with time, after that, we came to realize, actually, you don't need to put the whole gown. There's a way you can just protect yourself, the face, and in case, because most of the time when we used to swab, a patient will vomit on you. A patient will vomit on you, or a patient will start nose bleeding because it was somehow will go deeper. So such things we used to, there's some gowns that we used to put on, not the whole PPE, but yeah, there's a way we used to dress ourselves to protect ourselves from all that. Mostly the number one emotion was fear of being infected. Number two was like, okay, we are one of the frontliners, so we will hear, personally I will hear news that frontliners are really going. So I was like, here, even me, I'm on in the verge of going. And at that time, not so many people wanted to work with, especially us, the other staff. There was that discrimination. You'll pass somewhere, you will hear someone, hey, ule ni wa COVID. So someone will tend to share away from you just in case you infect her or him. Now you're like, how will you infect him? When you yourself, you do not have COVID. There was that, we were already labeled, watu wa COVID ni wamefika. So the first times. So people will, when you're walking and you've gowned yourself, people they'll try, even the lift. When you enter the lift and people are in the lift, you've already gowned. They get out of that lift. So you remain alone there. The experience was not nice. So inside, when they do that, I'm already scared. I'm going to get this thing. If I get, the family will get it. So in your mind, you're like, by the way, I'm going to die. So there was that fear of getting infection and getting infected and the fear of dying. No one wants to die, so there was that fear. That was number one. Then there was this, I can say the workload was a lot. It was a lot. So it was draining. And that time, even if you're on off, you'll just hear, you'll find a phone call that, hey, there's this, we are overwhelmed, come back. So we never used to, even if you're off duty, you are not 100% off duty because you'll be called anytime, any day. So those are the things that, it's an experience that I'll never want to experience again. It was not nice. It reached a point personally, I was like, I used to ask myself, when will this COVID end? So when the numbers started dropping, I was the happiest actually. So I was like, hiya, no, and McHugh, when numbers started dropping, now people, you'll some staffs will they used now to get interested to know they want to work in COVID when the numbers started going down. So even in terms of staffing, we were somehow okay because now people embraced the COVID thing. I was happy because I knew now this thing is going to end and we'll go back to normal. That time when I started working with COVID, I can say I'm the one who decided I'm not going to infect my family members. So I'm the one who came up with that decision that I'll keep off. And there's a time one of my family member got infected with COVID, so it was like a blame game, and one was brought that COVID them. So of course such a thing will bring issues in the house, quarrels here and there. You're the one who brought, you're the one who volunteered yourself, and you did volunteer yourself to go and work there. You were chosen to go and work there. So those small issues, I'm sure so many people who worked in COVID experienced such. But so of course there are those, we are human beings, there are those complaints of maybe workload is a lot, someone is on duty, you tend to be recalled back, you'll come back not happy. Then there are those. There are times when we are now giving report. We will complain about patients being difficult. There are some patients who used to be difficult actually. When you want to, especially the ones who used to be in IDU Mbagathi, when you've already removed a specimen from that person. You come back after maybe 5 days, 3 to 5 days. Back to the same patient to remove sample from him. It was, personally, I used to find the sample, not me removing the sample, being removed that sample, it was uncomfortable. So I would understand when a patient will refuse to be removed, to be swabbed. So some patients will become difficult and others violent also. Violent to a point of maybe wanting to beat you up. So there are such stories. You just wonder how, and there's that notion of the customer is always right. So you will leave him alone or her alone. So during our meetings, there are such stories. So how do you handle such a patient? And that patient has to be swabbed for us to know if he's recovering, so that he can be put to another ward where the people are recovering at there. But he or she doesn't want to be swabbed because it's uncomfortable. Yeah. So we had those challenges. There are many challenges, but those were the major ones. And of course the discrimination. What were COVID? We used to be labeled what were COVID. What were COVID? when you pass somewhere. When COVID came and I got to have that experience of patients coming when they're okay, others not making it, others dying when you're seeing them there, you want to get a sample from them. You're told, this one has gone. Personally, it humbled me. I was like, life is short. It humbled me. I learned a lot from COVID, and I'm still learning. And yes, I learned a lot. And somehow it made me change how in terms of work ethics, it made me change in terms of how I interacted with people. In short, I can say it humbled me. I was humbled by COVID. What I can say is, if ever there'll be such a thing happening, I would advise people not to, how can I say it? We embrace it as a team. We avoid that discrimination of maybe, let that one go back there. That discrimination, I think, is the one that puts someone down. You're like, you try and it's like you're calling yourself for a meeting. You're like, okay, now I'm here. They want me to die. That's why now I'm working here. When other staffs try to discriminate these other staffs, you tend to feel like you're in that path of going to die. So if ever such a thing would reoccur, people to come together and we fight this thing together. Tusiogope, should not be scared. We just fight it head on. Not that other people are fighting it and others are like watching from far. So, because I feel like that's what happened. I might be wrong, subject to debate, but I feel like that's what happened. Other people are sitting from other corner waiting. And there are other people who are at the front line doing that well.
I like to say that the kind of experience that I gained as a nurse in infectious disease unit, I think today I'm more prepared that in case of any infectious disease or any pandemic, for instance, I can be able to handle. Because what I came to realize, whatever is important in a pandemic, is that you know the causative agent and the mode of transmission. The moment you know those two, you can be able to know the type of PPE or protective measures that you can be able to take, so that now you can be able to take care of others. But you must have people who can soldier around and say that I can be counted among people who can say, well, I can be able to do it. My name is James Maragori Gashago. I'm a critical care nurse, currently attached to Kenyatta National Hospital, infectious disease unit. I started my nursing career year 2009, having started my diploma at Tumutumu School of Nursing year 2006. So I qualified in 2009. Later I joined the ministry year 2010. I have worked in Wajir County, Wajir District Hospital. I also have worked in far-flung area of Wajir East District, then a hospital called Korofarar Sub-District Hospital. I also have worked, after 5 years working in Wajir, I was transferred to Nyeri County, where I worked in a critical care unit for 1 year. Then I transferred to Meru County, I worked for 1 year. So from 2016, I've been working at Kenyatta National Hospital. I started working as in ICU, medicine ICU, Immediately after COVID-19, I was deployed to infectious disease unit, Bagathi, which was at Bagathi Hospital. From the time of COVID-19 to date, I've been working in infectious disease unit. As I can attest, I'm also a father of 3. I'm married to 1 wife. I have 3 kids. I'm a Christian also. I fellowship at Presbyterian Church of East Africa, a place called Kamangu in Kikuyu sub-county. I think in terms of Kenyatta National Hospital, if I can start from there, had prepared us. In 2017, we were taking for a training here at Kenyatta concerning Ebola. And basically we are trained most how to deal with infectious diseases and how to work in what we call CTUs, that is infectious disease units. From 2020, when COVID came to Kenya, I was among the people who were selected. From my experience, it was not an easy thing. It took grace of God. It took professionalism. Also bearing in mind that we had previous training, it was also a good ground for me to go and tackle COVID-19. Also COVID-19, when it came professionally, I was feeling that it's as if somebody is not happy about me, because why should you select me among so many? But I came to learn that it was a good experience. I have enjoyed having worked in COVID-19 center. I have enjoyed having dealt with COVID-19. It has given me more experience. And when I was selected, what happened is that I think because of the effect of being told that you are going to work in COVID-19 center, I started developing symptoms of COVID-19. And I remember I started coughing. I had to keep myself away from the home. One of the room, I did put on the mask. I called the Kenyatta National Hospital. Then now I've been having cough, I've been having fever. I think I got COVID-19, but it was not. I was transferred from my home using an ambulance to Bagathi. I was admitted there. Luckily, I was done the COVID test. It was negative. But from that experience, now that is the time that we agreed with my spouse that now we need to separate for some time, because you had a scare. If it was really that you had an infection, you could have infected us. In fact, when I was being discharged from Bagathi, I did not find them at home. I did organize for them for the transport. They went to the rural area. So I was left alone all the time that we have been tackling COVID-19. I think it took around 6 months that she came back. After now, we were able to know more about the COVID-19 and the measures that we could take to protect ourselves. It was easy for her because the feeling was either you take off, you just resign, leave the work, or it is between the family or work. It's not an easy thing for me, because now I'm feeling that now I'm going to lose the family. At the same time, I'm going to lose my job. It was a very thin line, and I usually say that it took the hand of God, because they took the intervention of their parents, because they accepted them at our rural area. And luckily, the kids were not at school at that time, but my kids were also very young. So at least we were able to forge ahead well. But it was emotionally, for if you are married, you have your wife, you are used to everything to be done around you. Now nobody is around where you are. I'm used to playing with my kids. They are nowhere to be seen. And I remember when they came back, my daughter was not even recognizing me. That was the lowest moment that I had, because when I picked them from the bus station, my daughter, when I started to hold her, she cried back and went back to the mother. So I felt That was the lowest moment that I've ever had in my life, because I was separating from them simply because I'm working in an IDU, and mine is to try to alleviate pain and to alleviate the death, or to make the patient who had COVID-19 more comfortable. But at the same time, it's affecting me on the other side. So it was, for my family and COVID-19, it was not an easy task as well. Yes, the effect to my family. Yeah. We used to have what we call morning briefing. Morning briefing were sessions that were done by our mental health department. They used to come, sit us down, and we are to air out what we are feeling. And we could say if anything that we have tackled. Like now I remember sharing about my family. I remember sharing how I felt that some of my colleagues here were running away from me simply because I was working in IDU at Bagathi COVID Center. And it was from that time, those breathing were helping us emotionally, and we could feel that somebody is listening to our feelings. Because that time you could just keep it to yourself, and they could have put one into depression. But this morning the breathing were good. Then from morning the breathing, we will have at least have something to eat. Because now when you are going in an infectious area, we had a specific PPE to put on. So you are going to cover yourself. So you need a lot of energy. So we put on. The good thing, we never lacked our PPEs. That was quite commendable, because we had our PPEs and we could prepare before we could get. How many patients do we have? Have a plan. So we are going to bathe this patient, we are going to give them medication, we are going to dress them, we are going to turn them. For those who are to be assisted feeding, we are going to assist them. For those who have a nasogastric tube, we are going to feed them also. So we plan ourselves. So all those tasks, we ensure that we are going to do them appropriately, timely, so that we don't also take a lot of time in the patient's area. Remember, it's also a risk area. Despite having a PPE, we don't have to stay there for a long time. So prepare, then have our team leader, because we usually had a team leader who would usually, after you have gowned, I cannot be able to recognize you as a person. So you need to be labeled. So you are labeled quite well. Then you go to the patient area. Then you go to patient's area. We used to do exactly what we used to our normal patients. You would greet them, and they know us by our names, because we have our names script on the PPE. So basically, we could just do our nursing procedures as per se. Even those who are working in ICU, the procedure was still the same. So take care of the patient, do whatever is supposed to be done for the patient. Give them medication, make them comfortable, bathe them, ensure that they are well nourished, the environment that they are living is clean. Then we'll just go off and the gown, then we go back to our nursing station. Then we do the recording, and at the end of the day, remember that time we had to leave a bit early, because by 7 p.m. we're supposed to be back to our homes. That was basically how we were working in Bagathi COVID Center. One thing about COVID-19, it came with a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of anxiety. Like me, I had issue to do with, I was very anxious. Most of the time I was thinking on how things are going to end. I remember having gone through counseling sessions. I had a counselor attached to me. We were attached to a counselor. I used to talk to the counselor severally, because my feeling then was like the world was coming to an end. Remember, my family is away from me. I'm not sure whether if I get this infection, whether I'm going to get out of it. So the anxiety that came with it was a great issue. how to come out of how we have dealt with the anxiety was that those counseling sessions, they were very good. We were able to be able to cope. I was in a rented area. People will know that I'm a health worker. Some of them will know that I work in Bakati. So the relationship that you had with them initially changed. And they could see that you could be the reason why they could be dying of COVID-19 because you're coming from a COVID center or COVID treatment center. So I think that one, to me, the remedy for it is to ensure that if there is any pandemic, ensure that the public get the correct information. Not seeing that the health worker as a person who is more infectious, but seeing a health worker as a person who is trying to cut off or try to minimize the spread of the disease. Another thing that was a challenge, remember there was no churches then. The issue to do with spiritualism and religion. I remember my church was a great support to me, the Presbyterian Church at Kamango. These people, the church never discriminated me at one time. In fact, when the churches came back, they gave me a platform whereby I was talking. I used to give health information to the church concerning the same. Now when it comes to health part, for us health worker, our main challenge was supply sometimes. Worldwide, we had the issue of supply. New supplies went off, like N95 masks that we're using to cover ourselves. The PPEs, they were out of stock at one time. Remember, at one time we were short of oxygen in the country. Remember the time that the government was telling people to bring back the cylinders that they had. So for me, I feel that as a country or for policy, we should always be prepared, and we should have those materials that can make those PPEs available in our country, so that even if we go back to pandemic or we have a pandemic, we can be able to tackle it, so that we don't have the issue of supply of required PPEs during a pandemic. Another challenge that I saw then was the economic challenge that came. It also affected us in one way or another, because some of our siblings, maybe they lost job, and we were only people that were supporting them. And I remember, I think for that, I think for all of us as a country, I think we should be prepared. At any one time that you are working, you should be prepared that there can be a time that the economy can be told that everybody should be at home. What can I do? Okay? So we should be planning at all times. That always when you are working, remember that a time may come that you may be told that now you need to work from home, or you have been halted from working. So I think those are some of the challenges that I saw that were affecting us at that time. Okay, for correct and proper management of pandemics, we were mostly talking about PPEs, but if you look at the pyramid, the PPEs are the least. The first thing is to try and eradicate the causative agents. Okay? So, whereby you try as much as possible, if it is disinfection, it can be done, okay? To avoid the disease spreading. Another thing that can, in that pyramid, also to do with the susceptible host. Susceptible host is who is this person who is likely to get the infection, okay? What can we do to the person? Do we do the immunization? Do we do health education? Do we improve the facility that they are living in? Another thing that also we should recommend is issue to do with engineering, medical engineering. Medical engineering, I mean that the facilities that we are using, they should be compatible to the growing or arising of pandemics. For instances, whereby we have negative pressures, okay? They're called negative pressures, whereby the air circulation is controlled. We ensure that facilities that are around our country have those negative pressures, so that at the end of the day, in case we are always prepared, as I said earlier, we are always prepared, or we live as if we have the pandemic now. Okay? Now the issue now of PPEs will come far much later, because now PPE will come after now we have gotten the infection. But you have already done measures to prevent it from spreading, so that we don't have the person already infected.
My name is Daniel Otieno. I'm a senior nursing officer working at the Kenyatta National Hospital, and I've served in this hospital for the last 20 years. I started as a staff nurse and moved on up to the current position, which is now the senior nursing officer position. But I still do bedside nursing and also management duties at the same time. And initially, I worked in the infection and control unit, and during that time, I worked in I supervised medical wards. That time, I was working as an infection control nurse, and most of the duties that I performed were mainly surveillance on disease outbreaks. Again, also to check on the IPC and standard precautions and how the compliance and adherence were conducted. And during that time, also in 2014, November, during the outbreaks of Ebola, since I was an infection control nurse, I had a lot of information on disease prevention or outbreak response. And so I got the opportunity to participate in the response in West Africa for the Ebola outbreak, Liberia in particular. I worked under IOM, USAID, and came back to Kenyatta. That time I was seconded. And so I had the opportunity also to gain experience on how to respond to the emergencies and also the pandemics. And so I also got another opportunity to work with the World Health Organization. Again, they deployed me to Liberia, and it was a great challenge. Again, being away also from the family, although now it was now building the healthcare facilities, rebuilding the healthcare facilities, and also resilienting the healthcare system. And now it gave me a lot of confidence and also experience in terms of outbreaks management. And so when it came to the COVID pandemic, now I didn't have much stress to really be scared of working in such kind of environment. Although the COVID was a new phenomena, being that the number of healthcare workers who were being reported on the television news and even on social media, it was scary. And so when I was informed that I was to go and work in the COVID isolation unit, everyone, especially my family members, my wife, she was not comfortable about me going to work in that in the COVID isolation unit because of the fear, and again, many healthcare workers were declining to work in the environment, and so she wondered why me I was ready to go and work in that situation. Actually, she thought that I'm the one who lobbied for that position, but I told her I was asked by my employer, and I felt that since I have the experience, I was able to go and offer my support, and also to take care of these patients who needed our care. And so I was made the team leader at the Mbagathi Isolation COVID Center, and I worked there from April 2020 up to March 2021. At the time now we closed the unit, and so it was up to March 2022. That's the time we closed the unit, and now came back to this isolation unit. And that's how, from there on, I've been working this infectious disease unit, where we now handle different kinds of infectious conditions. And then now this unit, being a national facility, we have put in place every standard in terms of isolation of patients, and also the other IPC standard precautions to ensure that any patient who is brought here with infectious disease condition, we are able to handle without exposing other healthcare staff or even other patients, and to ensure that they get well and go home without also contracting other diseases in the hospital. And so most of the work that we do here is we will receive referrals from outside the hospital, and again also transfer in from the wards once a patient has been diagnosed to have a multi-drug resistant organism or is suspected to have infectious disease that requires isolation. Then we are always called, and then we prepare for such kind of patients. Then we admit and take care of them, giving the nursing care and also any other related management. Yes. Because of the news that was on the internet and also on the television, there were a lot of fears, especially the staffs, and any suspected case would make people to either run away or start panicking. And so I have to say that in the initial stages also, since the Asian countries, that is the supplier of most of the equipment or the supplies that we use, especially like the mask and gloves and even other protective gowns, they were already overwhelmed. And so even as we started having that challenge of supplies, having enough supplies for the protective equipment, and so people were wondering, how do we take care of patients when we are not well taken care of in terms of protection? And so being in the infection prevention and control unit, the challenge was again on us, because we were initially I was doing part of awareness creation and sensitization to staffs, but now it now came on me that I was to go on the ground and also to work myself. So now I was now facing the challenge of shortage of supplies, and here I'm the one who has been telling people about using proper use of protective gear, and also going into the patient care area when you are well protected. And now these supplies are not there. So it was a big challenge in terms of preparedness, but with time, things started improving. And so we were able at least to get supplies from the medical agency, Kenya Medical Agency, that is KEMSA. And so again, we also, with the different kind of strains of COVID, many of our patients and even other healthcare workers were affected, and they required oxygen. And it reached a point whereby sometimes we ran out of oxygen. And so being in the unit, patients depend on you, relatives are calling. And so sometimes you could find yourself helpless. And these are some of the challenges that we cannot forget, because you could see a patient struggling to breathe. You are helpless, you don't know what to do. The supplies are still at the oxygen plant in the industrial area. The people who have gone to bring them are telling you they are still lining, or there is no vehicle to bring them. And so it was sometimes there were a lot of chaos. Yes, but I want to say that the government of Kenya did a lot to ensure that the situation was put under control. And later on, they installed for us the oxygen plant. And so that one also gave us some kind of, it gave us some kind of good buffer for that kind of challenge in terms of oxygen supplementation. So that's what I can say, that the challenges that we encountered during the COVID outbreaks, they were enormous, because you could be talking to a patient and the next moment this patient is gasping. And again, some of the healthcare workers who are admitted in the unit, you could feel for them, because this is a colleague, he's like you, and now you see them helpless. They're the ones who were taking care of the patient maybe in the previous week, and then now they're again on the patient's bed, being taken care of, and also asking for your help. And so it used, because even when we lost some of the healthcare workers, nurses and doctors, it was always a very sad moment for us, because you could find that now if you lose this person, then you now think of yourself. And you see even some of our colleagues also contracted the disease, and they had to be given time off to go and self-isolate themselves, because and some of them also were admitted in the same institution. So it was not something to really be comfortable about, because even I personally, I contracted the COVID, although I did not show the symptoms, but when I was screened, I tested positive for it. And that fear, it came because now when I was told that you look at these signs, if they happen, sometimes I could have that kind of difficulty of breathing when I was in the house. So I had now just to be comforted by my wife telling me that, no, you may be just, because I was looking at it now, what next? Do I go, if I am taken to the hospital, am I going to be put for that oxygen? Those are the things which were coming into my mind. But later on, when I went for a retest, at least I tested negative, and it gave me now that kind of, I settled now mentally, knowing that I was free of it. But it was a scare. So those are some of the challenges that working in that environment posed to us. And we also depended on God, because that is what we also saw, that through the psychosocial support and spiritual guidance, it also made most of our patients to get well. Although Kenyatta National Hospital is a world-class referral hospital, and it also handles cases even beyond the country. But during that time, we saw that we were able even to handle foreign patients, and there were many. And again, our success rate in the number of patients who recovered was also high, and that one again, it brought our hospital into the international map in terms of the best hospitals that manage COVID outbreaks, because our isolation had almost every equipment that was needed, and we even had the critical care unit within it. We were also having dialysis room within our isolation unit. So it was a comprehensive like center, because even laboratory investigations were also later on it was now domiciled within the unit, and so you could always interact with all kinds of departments that to give that kind of holistic care to our patients. And so I can say it was one of the best managed isolation unit, because the government, through the Ministry of Health, was always on and ensuring that the unit does not run out of any kind of supplies. In fact, I enjoyed working there than the general was that we have as of today, because everything that you needed, you are given. And it also brought a lot of many medical staffs. Majority were even using the personal, some of the kind of personal protective gears that they were using it for the first time when they were deployed to that place. And again, it also made people to now build that confidence that they can respond to any future occurrences that we may have. I can say that when some of the relatives or friends heard that I was deployed to that unit, first of all, they were concerned about the environment I was working in. And again, there are some friends whom I also lost to COVID. And so they were looked at it that now I was also, I put myself on the line. And so no one was comfortable with me working in that. But then again, when some of their also close friends or relatives contracted the disease, then again they could consult me on what do we do about it. And again, it was now like the symbiotic kind of relation, because they were concerned about me, but again, when they had a need, they also consult me. And so that was the kind of life that we be, because again, the fear was all over. And now anybody who was working in the healthcare facility, this one, that the people now they again had to depend on. And so that is how it worked. But it gave me some kind of mileage and also respect among colleagues and friends. Yes, that's something I can say. Yes. Despite the successful response to COVID-19 pandemic, the national government should continue to always keep the list of staff who are the frontliners, so that periodically we can be given some kind of taken through some kind of retraining, so that we are all, that kind of database is always available for in terms of in readiness and also preparedness for any future outbreaks. And then because there were some experiences that during the COVID pandemic, we had to now work with people who are just fresh from college, And so it took us also some time just to make them integrate with us in our, to integrate in the system, and also to build that confidence of working. In fact, some left on the way. Some had to resign because they said this is not what we were, this is not what we expected. So we feel that a team should be built and then trained, or keep abreast with any information that is coming out, so that we don't have those kind of challenges in the event of the pandemics. Yes. So even if we get new staffs, some of them will blend, and then even if some leave, but that workforce is enough to continue or to keep going, because that is why sometimes we were having the burnout. Yes, you find that some people are unwell, they have to be on sick leave, and now you are left with no one, because the other people say, I have not been trained, I can't work in that kind of situation. May I have a young kid, I don't want to risk my family. And you see, there was no one who was being forced to work there. So I think that kind of a team needs to be done. And I want to also give a thumbs up to KNH, because at least KNH had a skeleton team. Yes, even if it was not the number was not enough to deal with the in terms of response, but there was some people who were trained during the Ebola time, and so that list was that's where some of the staffs were fished from, although some had already resigned, or some gone to foreign countries to work there. But at least that was a start